The meta has dramatically shifted in patch 6.5. From the introduction of a new powerful DPS to massive buffs and nerfs across the board, the meta has continued to evolve throughout all of Season 6. That's why in this video we're going to break down the best and worst heroes across all ranks for tanks, DPS, and supports, give you some special recommendations for solo carrying, console, low, and high elo, so everything will be included. But before we begin, a quick word from our sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Snaxy, the web-powered app that lets you turn your game time into real rewards. And no, I don't mean points that can go nowhere, I mean stuff that you can actually use, like PayPal, cash, or gift cards from Amazon, Netflix, Uber Eats, and even gaming credits for PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, and Nintendo. The flow is super simple. You open Snaxy, swipe through the game discovery section, see how much you can earn, pick a game you actually want to play, install, play it, and complete a few tasks to instantly start earning coins. When you're ready, you head to the shop and cash out, play, earn, redeem, that's it. Now, if you use my link, you can get up to $10 of a sign-on bonus. Grab your up to $10 bonus and start earning with Snaxy today. So you're not starting from zero, you're already on your way the second you sign up. Setup takes a minute and you're earning from games you'll probably be playing anyways. What I like about Snaxy is they don't overcomplicate things. You can see what each game pays, you pick what you're into, and you just play. From RPGs to farming games, action, and many more, people are already cashing out, and you can too. So yeah, it's really that simple. You play, they pay. It's a simple way to make your downtime actually pay you back with rewards that you will really use. So go ahead and click the link in the description and start earning with Snaxy today. And also massive thanks to Snaxy for sponsoring this video. Now, first off, we got to talk about tanks, because tanks are the building blocks of all metas in the game. Space is the areas that you occupy, deal damage from, and heal from, and tanks create it. So everyone needs it, and that's why tanks are the most important role when dictating metas. And the first thing we gotta recognize is that there are no F or D tier tanks, because all the tanks are actually reasonably playable. There's even a rise of triple tank that we'll talk about a little bit later, but what you need to know is that all the tanks are fine. Like, they're playable, none of them are throw picks, none of them are even bad characters to main, but there are tiers to this, and just because they're all reasonably good doesn't mean that there aren't some tanks that are better or more broken than others. So let's first talk about the C tier, which is our first set of tanks. The first one I want to talk about, and this is in no particular order here, VENOM. Now, VENOM has received a lot of buffs and changes throughout the past couple of patches, and while he does have a powerful ultimate and he is good into triple support backlines because he can take a lot of damage and he's a great enabler for dive compositions, unfortunately for VENOM, the meta just doesn't favor him all that well. Dive as a whole is just really hard to make work in ranked play, and keep in mind this tier list is for specifically ranked. While VENOM is very strong in coordinated pro matches, he gets weaker and weaker the less coordination you see, with the prevalence of so much hard crowd control, so many stuns, and in VENOM's case, there are so many meta characters that make his life miserable. We have characters like Emma that can grab him, characters like the Thing that can make it very hard for him to play the game, characters like Rogue that can mark him, and Angela that can constantly harass him, Invises that will pull him when he tries to grapple out. I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, the thing about it though is that VENOM can still be very strong in the right composition with the right team. VENOM plus Jeff is an amazing combo, and VENOM can clear the way for other divers to dive backlines and get kills. So like clearing the way for a Daredevil, for instance, baiting at all these cooldowns could be really, really good. They use it all on you, they can't use it on the Daredevil that kills their team. This could be great, but the problem is in ranked play, setting up coordinated dives, trying to bait out cooldowns, and trying to 3-2-1 target something specific is much harder than waiting around on Bucky, seeing someone that jumps in, and then just bursting your cooldowns on them and they're in a bad position. And this is true for a lot of characters. And there are many other DPS like Elsa or Jean that are very hard to dive for VENOM. And the reality of it is, you can carry with this in the right comp. It's just those comps don't come up all that often. And there's too many random characters in the game right now that can completely mess up your engagements. Like I said, not unplayable. He's still in C tier and he can be much better in a more coordinated environment. But for the most part in ranked play, it's a really hard season to play VENOM and get easy wins with him. Now, the next character in C tier is actually Hulk, and he's here for some of the same reasons. I mean, the character did get some pretty massive buffs recently in patch 6.0, and the character feels pretty fluid compared to his old self. The problem is there are so many, once again, very, very bad matchups for Hulk. Now, unlike Venom, the matchups that are really bad aren't as common in the tank lineup. It's mostly just supports and DPS that are really causing him a ton of problems. Characters like Elsa, he just has very, very hard times interacting with. Jean is already really difficult for him to deal with. And then backlines of Invis pushing and pulling him away. Triple support backlines he feels useless into. And there's just a lot of situations where Hulk feels like he can do anything he wants, but none of what he can do is particularly impactful. Now, I'm not going to say that's always the case. There are going to be games where you can kind of go crazy and you can really carry unlike any other character. But there are many more games that feels like you're actively putting yourself as a disadvantage playing Hulk as an off tank over many of the other off tank options that get so much value right now. I do think that Hulk can be great in the right hands, but even the best Hulks in the world are either struggling this season more than other seasons, or they're just playing other off tanks and they're only playing Hulk in very specific situations because they know they can make him work with the right bans in the right context. Now, I also think that maps play a big role into Hulk. Maps with a lot of verticality, Hulk is gonna feel better and be better on those maps. Like, the flatter the map, the worse Hulk is gonna feel and be. But overall, I think the character can be reasonable, can be a solo carry option, but there are gonna be some other picks that just get value much easier than Hulk does. So if you wanna lock in this character, you're gonna have to work for every win you get. Now, moving up to the B tier, these are characters that are really good in the right situations, but they do have weaknesses either without a team up or in certain specific types of compositions they don't work as well. So let's run through them. First off is PENI, and PENI is just a hard one to place because she's very linear in the places that you can play her, and she's very, very good. Like on choke points and especially on defense, PENI can be S tier. She could be a complete shutdown character, shuts down melee DPS, forces the opponents to completely swap. If they don't swap to counter you, they might just lose the game. She's extremely disruptive. She has lots of crowd control. She really allows your team to hold and maintain space very, very well, unlike any other character. She's so strong at that. But then there are other situations where, depending on what the enemy walks out on, they can walk out on a certain comp that you don't get a lot of trap value, you don't get a lot of, bunker value, or you have to play her on attack, which really good pennies can make work, but it becomes a lot more difficult to get free value on the character. You have to work for a lot of these setups. You have to kind of get value off the chaos. I think one thing that every PENI player will agree with is that PENI gets value when opponents don't know what's happening and they constantly fall for your tricks and traps and setups. The more a person plays against a good PENI, the harder and harder it is for that PENI to get value against them, because PENI wants a lack of communication, a completely disorganized teams, players that don't know what you're doing, and that's how you can really get value. But that value diminishes the more and more they get repetition against you. Now, in summary, I think PENI has really good and bad polarizing matchups against certain characters and really good and bad situations. So she kind of flutters between like D tier and S tier depending on the situation and map. I think she's an amazing character to have in your back pocket and know really what you're doing. But if you're committing to maining PENI, it's going to be very, very tricky to make her work. Although she is a character that does have enough depth that if you get good enough, you can make it work. Now, next up in the B tier is a character that's kind of cut from the same cloth as Venom. We have Cap. Cap is a character that enables dive and is really, really good at harassing backlines, baiting out cooldowns, and there's a lot of things he shares similar in Venom as far as what type of compositions he helps enables. Daredevil compositions, dive compositions, he's really good at enabling those things, but he struggles in a lot of the same way as Venom, where you go in the back line, you bait out Mantis Sleep, you bait out Luna Freeze, you bait out Push, Pull, whatever you're baiting out, right? If no one is coming in with you and capitalizing on all the stuff that you're baiting out, oftentimes you still won't win the fight even though you're doing so much. And there's a lot about Cap that you can do that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. You could stall cart, you could stall the opponent, you could bait attention, and then you're sitting there with like 3 kills and 0 deaths while the rest of your team have like 10 kills, 12 kills, but you contributed a lot to the fight. But at the end of that game, that SR is not gonna give you what you actually deserve. Now, I think mostly Cap's problem is that players are not utilizing the space that you're creating, nor are they utilizing the cooldowns that you're baiting and the attention that you're baiting. That's why Cap becomes completely, really strong, like maybe even busted in pro play. He's one of the strongest characters in pro play because players will play off of you at all times in pro play, right? There's active communication, all that stuff. You're not getting that in ranked. And I think you could make Cap work in a really good duo. I think like a Cap and a Daredevil duo could be really good. Even like a Cap with an aggressive support like a Jeff could be pretty cool because you can get like a cross angle going, bait out cooldowns, things like that. But oftentimes Cap is gonna just feel like you're basically fighting the team by yourself while your team doesn't do anything to help you out and nothing ever gets done. So I do think he's kind of a hard character to main, but the second you get even one diver on your team, all of a sudden, boom, okay, I can play Cap and then we can enable each other and things can be really good. So I think the character can be really strong, but there are gonna be times that he does feel a bit weaker overall. Now, the last one in B tier, at the top of B tier, and I think it's by quite a bit, we have Rogue. Rogue is a very strong character, and the character is a bit tricky as far as evaluating because she plays very different in a lot of different compositions. She can mark divers, she can mark other tanks like Angela, she can mark them and really harass them. She can go in and be like this pseudo diver. She's really good at peeling. She's kind of like a jack of all trades. She's cut from the same cloth of characters like Hulk and Thor, where they get to do a little bit of whatever they want, whenever they want, and as long as they're being impactful and denying enemy value, the character can work just fine. Now, the thing in Rogue's case is she becomes even an entire tier higher when she has the Gambit team up. Because of that extra sustain, because of that extra burst damage, she really just gets to go a bit crazy in the hands of Rogue. That's good. When she has that team up, she also synergizes really well with Gambit Ultimate because of the way that the pull-in works with her dash ability. And the problem here is that, of course, Gambit's banned all the time, so you're not going to get that synergy all that much. But even without it, she's really good against a lot of characters. She's good against characters like Thor, steal his ability, and just lightning bolt, have a lot of damage. She's good against Strange, grab, get a shield. She's good at marking Angela's. She's really good against a lot of these various tanks. I think you could play her in an anti-dive comp. I think you could play her in a dive comp. I think you could play her flexibly in kind of the same slots that you would play like a Hulk in. And overall, I think the character is in a good spot, but she's not busted. And I know that that seems weird, but there are tanks that we are going to talk about that get a ton of value for absolutely free, that peel for absolutely free, or do something that is really fundamentally broken consistently in ranked play, and those kind of shift the meta of ranked around in a way that Rogue just doesn't quite do. You have to work really hard for everything you're doing, but you have a lot of tools to do many different things, and you could do them well, and I think even to a better rate than Hulk can most of the time. So I do think that Rogue is a great character overall, but like I said, the upper echelon A and S tiers are filled with characters that just have so much built-in value and much higher ceilings of impact. Now we're moving up to the A tier, and the one that I have at the bottom of A tier is actually The Thing. This character has made a massive step up from previous seasons because he's really good into quite a few types of compositions. With his ability to gain health based on how much damage his Haymaker is doing, he's really good against any type of double shield composition. So if they're playing like Mag, Strange, he's really good. He can also be fairly good against Emma as long as you make sure to dodge the grab. And he can be good against compositions that are a little bit unorthodox. He's good against dive compositions. He's good against Angela, very good against Angela. Any of the kidnap compositions, you're getting pulled out by Wolf, Angela, Invis, he can play really well into those things. He's also, of course, going to be great into any dive mobility heavy characters, and there's a lot of them that see play right now, from Daredevil to MAGIK to IRONFIST. He can see play and be reasonable against those, keeping your team alive. And if they enable you, you can get a ton of value, get a lot of damage out, get your ultimates very quickly. He has a good ultimate. The character is really great. The only problem with him is he's a bit one-dimensional. He's a very hard character to one-trick because there are times where he feels like he does nothing because he doesn't have a great way to contest sightlines. He doesn't have a great way to contest poke characters, and there's a lot of them that you kind of need to contest right now in this meta, whether it's an Elsa or it's a freaking Jean on an off angle. He can't do anything about it. Like, he needs close engagements. You have to get really crafty with how you're engaging people. So he plays very well, honestly, in the support game, the ult trade game. He plays very well against a lot of tanks. he doesn't play that good against a lot of poke DPS, and that means that he's just really hard to one-trick. I think he's a great character to have in your back pocket, very easy to learn. You can whip him out in the right situations, and he can solve all the problems that you have in certain matches, but he's not going to be a character that you can lock in every single time and win the game with. It's going to be pretty frustrating to try to do that. Still, his strengths are so great, and the spots where he is absolutely broken come up enough that I think that every tank player should probably learn how to play the thing. Even DPS players should. Very easy to pick up. Great addition to your hero pool, and will win you more games. The next in A tier is one you might not expect. It's Thor, and I get it. Thor mains. I'm supposed to put Thor in D tier for the agenda, but I gotta be honest with the viewers. Thor is an A tier character in ranked play, and there's a lot of reasons for why Thor is so good, but the biggest one is Thor gets to do all the flexible things that characters like Hulk and Rogue do. Contest off angles, take 1v1s, peel, be proactive and dive sometimes. He could do a little bit of all those things, but Thor also gets this built-in really powerful kidnap. And that's the really big thing that made Thor kind of from bad to really good and ranked, is now you can just kidnap front lines over and over again. GROOT doesn't have a wall. You turn him into your team over and over and over again. You know, the Magneto doesn't have bubble, he pushes you forward. Kidnap him, kidnap him, kidnap him. The Angela's flying above, you ground her, you kill her. You can grab people out of position constantly. You can bully people. You have constant CC where you can just constantly crowd control people over and over and over again. And the big trick to Thor is that he can feel a bit fragile. He can feel really fragile. But if you make sure to use your terrain and the positioning of your team to your advantage, you can really kind of orchestrate an entire fight in your favor. I think he's one of the best solo carry characters you could possibly play in ranked, especially if you're underneath the Grandmaster rank, and especially he's great on console. He just gets to bully everything. Moon Knight on the high ground, go up there, take a duel with that. Magneto push too far forward, grab him, pull him into your team, and then repeatedly do it. Don't just do it once. Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, and that guy will eventually die. Like, he's such a snowbally character. He gets to really just bully characters in a way that almost no other tank can, and I really think he's very, very, very strong in the right hands. His one major flaw, in my opinion, is that you can't really solo tank with him, and you honestly want a good primary or main tank. You want someone like an Emma or a Mag or a GROOT. He plays really well with GROOT, or like a Strange on the front line. You don't typically want something like a Rogue and a Thor, and both of y'all are off doing some random flanky nonsense, and there's no one managing the front line or like helping your team press space or get the Magneto off them or whatever. Now, that being said, you do not need a shield tank in all your games, especially if you know how to build the right composition and properly play around it, but that's a concept for a completely different video in the future. But smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that. And the next in A tier is Strange. Once again, he's a very hard character to place because the character is just really good. Like, he has a great ultimate, he has good brawl, he plays reasonably well into poke. His ultimate's great because it can kill through support ultimates. And with his new flight tech, he can get really crafty with his ultimates and the way he gets out of fights. So he just has a lot of playmaking. He can kind of play a more off-tank role where he's marking certain characters and getting certain DPS off of high grounds and off angles. Or he can play like a frontline role when he needs to. He could do a little bit of all things. The big problem with Strange is he's a bit of a liability playing him, because you could lose the ability to port back to a fight. When a fight happens, oftentimes you want the first person to die to already start the port, so you can comfortably get back to site. You're not in a frenzy, and you have time to retake the space, retake the ground, and then get an extra fight in. When you're Strange, you cut that opportunity off. So if you're random other player ints, they can't swap to Strange, and they can't pour back, and sometimes it means that you just don't have a window to. I think with Strange in particular, you have to be very careful about how you die when you are playing him, because you almost want to die first, but you want to get value. Like, you don't want to just die and feed, but if you plan to pour, and that's like the whole game plan is to come back, you don't want to die last, especially, and typically you want to die early so you have plenty of time to die, pour your team back, and then comfortably get another engage before they get a major checkpoint. Now, this is kind of why it's hard for Strange to be placed anywhere, because as far as need to know, I've said this many times before, I don't care if you're a one-trick Spider-Man or if you're just like a support, ADAM-only player. Every single player in the game needs to learn how to play Strange. You need to know how to port back quickly and not take forever to port and route really slowly and miss the opportunity to get another fight. You need to know how to play Strange. If you end up stranded in a fight as Strange, but you're close to your ultimate, you could build up your ult, pop over, ult the enemy team, cancel their ultimates, kill through defensive ultimates, but only if you know what you're doing. Like, you can't just randomly pick up Strange and port. That's not enough, because if you want to win fights, especially in the clutch, this is the character that everyone needs to know. You got to think of like the passive or the ability for you to port back is like a tacked on ability to every single character in the game. So everyone needs to know it. So in reality, this character is like the only true quadruple S tier character, need to know, everyone learn type character, because he really is. Like, everyone should know how to play him. That's pretty non-negotiable, to be honest with you. Like, if you don't port back when you could have easily got a second point, like a second fight, like a real fight, you're kind of just throwing a game. And so he's such an important character to learn. And if you want to pick up any tank, he's probably the first one that you would want to pick up. And if you want to add a hero to your hero pool and you don't know Strange, he should be the first one that you add. And the last character in A tier at the very top is Angela, a character that I think is one of the best characters to solo carry with in the game because of her versatility. She has a very, very powerful kit overall, great mobility, and the ability to even dive and harass backlines in a similar way that like Cap could. But she has this extra versatility in the fact that she can just grab tanks and either take them off the map, take them out of position, take them to her team. So she just gets to displace people, but that combined with the rest of her kit means that she's always impactful. It doesn't really matter what type of composition the opponent's playing. They got to play tanks so you could kidnap them. They got to play support so you could attack them and attack with your team. You basically can always find a place to get value on the character. There's always going to be some angle that you can play in order to carry, some angle you can play to get impact, and there's some angles that are just like legitimately free impact. On some maps, you could just grab two characters and just take them right off the map and win the fight instantly, and then snowball the next fight. Make it so your opponents have to play really weird characters or in a very specific way to not just instantly fold to you. And even when they do those things, even when they play on the other side of the pin, even when they play characters that can't easily get farmed by you, you're still impactful. Like, you still can do so many things, but you just got to force their entire composition to play around you and just win a fight for free. This is kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about characters like Hulk and Rogue, is they don't get fights for free like that. They don't have any one thing they can do that has that huge spike in value. Like, you know, instantly grabbing someone and taking them off the map, instantly grabbing a Magneto, pulling him into your team, and he just dies, like, in the first 5 seconds of the fight. You can't do that on a lot of other characters like you can on Angela. She has such a high ceiling of impact, and she has a very, very high floor, too, of value. She just finds places to get value across the board. Now, there are some comps that can be very difficult to play into if the enemy wants to specifically all-in counter you. But apart from those very limited compositions, you're going to be able to always do something super, super strong, impactful, and carry on this character. And she's actually my #1 pick if you want to learn a character that is not like the objectively most banned and most powerful, but also is a character that can completely carry and make a game all about them. Angela is it. I think Angela is great. Now, last but certainly not least, it's the S tier. And I have 2 characters in the normal S tier and then 2 characters kind of in like the double or ultra or triple S tier, whatever you want to call it. But let's talk about the first tier of S tier characters first, because these are all the best tanks in the game. They're super, super strong. They can be played in a lot of compositions. And the first one is Emma. Emma is just good pretty much no matter what composition she plays in. She gets to just hold space, apply pressure, and then she's just really hard to move out of that area. If enemies overextended to her, she could punish them by diamond forming, grabbing them, kicking them to a wall. If enemies play really passive against her, she just constantly takes more ground, more space, and then just constantly beams and just build beam charge. She has a good ultimate. She just has a shield. So she's just always doing something, and she's always creating value. Now, I think the big place where Emma kind of lacks is she's just inherently a reactive character instead of a proactive one. So she's not going to be able to solo carry as hard as some of the other characters, but you're never going to throw on Emma. It's extremely hard to throw on this character. She's always going to be a net positive, whatever team composition she's in, and that could be poke, that could be brawl. She could even be left behind in a dive composition where she's mainly just helping stabilize the core of the team, help peel the supports, and then the rest of the team goes and dives. So overall, the character just fits in a lot of compositions, and she's pretty much always good in whatever team comp you're trying to play. And if you're ever in a game where it doesn't really matter what you pick, you feel like you're just not doing anything, Emma can just be that saving grace that you're like, okay, I'm for sure not going to feed, I'm for sure not going to throw, I'm for sure going to be a value added to my team overall. Emma is that character, and that makes her S tier just because of that. Now, the next character in S tier is Magneto. This is a character that is just really, really good in the way that the game is played in most lobbies. In poke meta, in long distance damage dealers, he can help control angles. He can poke out characters like HELA and Jean and ELSA. He just has a lot of reactive abilities, from bubbles that can enable or protect, to self-bubble, to an infinite damage absorbing shield. All of those play really well to each other. He also has a very powerful team up with Gambit that's really good if you ever get to use it. And most importantly, in my opinion, his ultimate is just super good in how it lines up against everything. You can kill cloak and daggers with it, you can kill punishers with it, you can kill Star-Lords with it, stop part of his ultimate, you can kill invises out of it, you can just keep your team alive temporarily, you could combo it with GROOT. Like, there's a million ways you could use it, and it's all good. It's one of the most powerful ultimates in the fact that it's good against so many different things and in so many different situations. It's one of those ultimates that just always has a place where it can get value, and there are levels to it. Sometimes you just pop it and you don't really get any kills with it, but you stop or counter an ultimate in its entirety. And when you put the entire package of Magneto together, he's just going to be a very, very dominating force in most games. But it's not all perfect with Magneto. There's a couple of things that you got to consider. Number one, there are some comps that can specifically target Magneto. While he does have ways to protect himself, he also can be the target of multiple forms of kidnap. I think characters like THOR and Angela can be frustrating to play into. Also, GROOT can be frustrating because he doesn't have any way to jump the wall, so he can get isolated. You can play around these things. You just have to make sure that you're adapting where you're positioning and how you're playing in order to not get farmed over and over. Also, the thing about Magneto is that his kit is pretty reactive inherently. Like, yes, you can be proactive on the character, but he's mostly about managing the pace of the fight, trying to give your team minor advantages across the whole game, and then you win the game like that. This means that he's going to take a good team and make them great, but he's not going to take a terrible team and make them good a lot of the time. He's not a very good carry character. Like, you can carry, but like the best of Magnetos are maybe winning 60% of their games. They're not gonna be winning, you know, like 80% of their games. They're not completely hard carrying every game they're in. Magneto just doesn't have the kit to just go in and kill and just run the lobby like some of the other tanks do. So I think those are the two places he's linear in. He has weakness in certain matchups, and he also just can't carry as hard as some other tanks. But if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to commit to the consistent slow grind of wins, the character can be very rewarding for you, both climbing elo and just always being impactful. Now we're moving a step up to SSS tier, and I want to talk about the best character in my mind first before I talk about the new kid on the block. So I'm going to talk about the best character, the most meta warping character. That is GROOT. I think GROOT is just pretty insane. He's able to completely shift how tanks play into him because he can just cut them off of healing at any time. He can cut off line of sights across the board, and there's a lot of characters that just cannot play the game into GROOT very well. Like, if you have a composition with two dive characters, none of the GROOT walls are dying. Like, they're never dying. You have a SPIDERMAN, MAGIK, the GROOT walls are up, and they are not breaking. Like, you're completely getting your front line cut off with your back line, and it's wraps. The character could be really, really annoying also because he can hide his ironwood wall that makes him CC immune, and unless you have a diver, you're not going to kill that wall. So you need a diver to kill the wall, but then if you have divers, you can't break the walls. Like, it's very, very difficult to game plan against a really good GROOT. And I think the biggest problem with GROOT, or like the biggest strength of GROOT, is that he builds ultimate so fast. There is not a tank that builds ult faster than GROOT, and I think that Groot can build his ultimate faster than just about any character in the game. And his ult is not just a weak whatever ult. It's one of the most powerful ults in the game to set up, to kill through defensive ultimates, to just kill the enemy team. If they don't have a defensive ult, they just fall over and die. If you have even one other person shooting in with you, you could box them up, throw your right click in, start swinging in, and you can just shred them. And this puts them in a really bad situation. Like, in a lot of situations, support ults get traded and the fight gets stalled out. But if you build ult first as Groot, or you build ult at the same time, and then you just ult their team and they pop an invis ult to live, and you have a combo like a NAMOR ult or a Moon Knight ult that also builds super fast, you're just killing them through the defensive ult, and then you're going to be building up your next one while they're building up their next one, and you're still going to, like, once again match them there. Like, it's such a strong character that can snowball games, that can create this like unsolvable problem that it feels like you could never get ahead of him in ult economy. He's also a big battery that's just gonna charge other supports ults very, very quickly as long as he doesn't die. Such a meta warping character that I truly believe on certain maps, especially tight choke points, if you don't have a Groot player, or if you don't play specific characters that are good against Groot, you should ban him. He's pick or ban. That's how strong the character is and how much he can warp entire games around him. There are very few characters in the game that warp the entire game all about them, and I think Groot is at the absolute top of that list, and that's why I have him as the strongest character in the game, or the highest tier in the game, even if there are some counter matchups and certain things that can abuse him, ways to shred his walls. You could play triple DPS Storm, you could play Storm Punny, you could play Punny Wolf, you could play all kinds of different things to harass him, maybe things that get up and over the walls. They don't care about the walls as much, but still, even in spite of those things, his strengths are so strong that he really just warps the games he's in all around him. Now, but I do think he's the strongest. He's not the only triple S tier tank in the game. There is one other, and it's Tank Pool. And some of you might have seen my Tank Pool video where I talked about him, but make no mistake, Tank Pool is the strongest off tank in the game. He doesn't play the main tank role. He can't hold space nearly as well as a lot of these frontline tanks, but he's so good in this off tank spot where he has flexibility to control off angles, to dual DPS, to dive back lines with his pistol ult. And I'm not going to get too in the weeds explaining like all the intricacies to Tank Pool. I can save that for a guide in the future. If y'all want to see that, let me know down below. But mostly it's about building the character to maximize his pistol ult, which when it's upgraded, it does take damage. And if they miss a heal, they'll take even more damage. So certain supports, you put that on, they're constantly going to take damage, and they're either going to need to be pocketed or killed. But Tank Pool also gets a massive amounts of shield, so he's 800 HP, walking at you, just putting a crazy amount of pressure on you, and you're taking tick damage and you're gonna die unless you're being pocketed. And he has a bubble that he could throw on you that can kind of cut you off from each other, so you basically just die. And the thing about Tank Pool that's really strong is that you're building up ultimates so fast. He's one of those characters that gets to break the mold of the trade of support ults for DPS ults and just kind of the constant support sustain with ults. He builds ults faster than supports do. And he has an ultimate that can kill supports and put them in like a checkmate situation. And then in addition to those things, he has very, very powerful poke, and you typically upgrade his guns, his pistol and his E for more rapid fire. And then you get to just duel characters. He's really good at dueling, most DPS in the game. He can force DPS out of off angles in a way other off tanks can't. He's really good at separating the front line from the back line by throwing a bubble behind the main tank. And if they are not really disciplined, they'll just die in that second when he's just shooting them in the face while they can't get heals because your bubble is there. There's so many ways to carry with this character. He has this checkmate ultimate, like I said. He has very strong neutral. He has constant playmaking. He can position anywhere. His ultimate is good from behind and when you do it first. Like, it's always good. There's just so many different spots to pop his ultimate. He's just such a good character, and there's a reason why almost all of the top 100, top 200 tanks are just maining Tank Pool right now, because the character is that good. And another thing about him that's really good is that he can be played in poke, He can be played in Brawl. He can be played in Dive. You could play him in any type of composition, and he's always freaking good. He's so strong all across the board. Such a great character. And that's not even to talk about OT, overtime matches. When you're in overtime, you get to keep all the levels that you did previously. And in that case, like when you walk out of spawn and you're in overtime on like a first point take, you are the strongest character to ever exist in Rivals by far. Like, the character is already very strong S tier, even without any of the upgrades and having to upgrade them throughout the game. But walking out of spawn with all your levels means that you could build ult before anyone else builds ult. Like, the supports are going to be at like 45%. You're going to have your ult. You can ult the back line, throw a bubble in, jump in with your pistols, and their supports have to pocket each other, or like one support has to pocket the other one. You're gonna kill them anyways. You're gonna win the fight instantly. Like, unless they have a tank pool too, there's like nothing they can do to stop this from happening. It's literally just an instant win. And while I'm fairly certain this character is probably gonna get nerfs down the line based on how long they've allowed certain characters to be busted, I think that you have many months until he becomes like substantially worse. And I highly recommend you pick him up. If you're looking for a tank to play that is very powerful, very free, very fun, and can be played in any type of composition, I highly recommend Tank Pool. He's such a dominating force right now. Now we're finally moving on to the DPS, and there are DPS in every single tier from F to S tier. Let's talk about the worst DPS first and make our way to the best in the game. Now, there are actually two DPS that I have in the F tier, and the first one we got to talk about is Blade. Even the best Blades in the world have completely abandoned this hero. The problems with Blade are really too many to count. The character doesn't really get a lot of value from his anti. When he tries to go in and swing his sword fast, in order to get high charge, he needs to swing for a while, but he's making it so he can't be healed a lot, so he's extremely vulnerable and squishy. In fact, there's no character in the game that can just sit there and just, you know, swing for 6 seconds and not just fall over and die. They're just gonna die. And unfortunately, the reward for trying to set that up is just it's nothing. You're doing menial damage for a lot of setup with no reward, and you're probably gonna feed. Now, on top of that, his pistol is very inconsistent with no regs. Also, it just doesn't do a lot of burst damage compared to many other options. And while he does have reasonable survivability, 350 HP, a block, and all that stuff, it's not enough when your neutral is two things that just don't really do all that much. No playmaking built in, and then an ultimate that isn't even guaranteed to bait out a defensive ult. And sometimes you can just put yourself in harm's way too. Now, you can kind of play around all these things and really work hard to make Blade work. And I think if you're really good, you could probably make him work like you can with every other character. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, am I playing Blade because he's good, or am I playing Blade because I just think the character's cool? Because if you're trying to play a Dive-esque character, there's so many better Dive-esque characters, like MAGIK or Daredevil. If you're trying to play a shooting, you know, getting value with your pistols and trying to get executions and kills, why not play something like Bucky instead? And to be honest with you, the better straight up version of Blade on the opposite end of the tier list, spoiler alert, is Elsa. She does everything that you could possibly want out of Blade, just 10 times better. And it means that this character has no justification for seeing play unless you just personally like him. That's it. Hopefully NetEase hits him with the rework or gives him massive buffs coming soon, but for now, this character is completely on ice. Now, next in the F tier is a little bit of a weird one. I have Scarlet Witch, and it's not to say that this character can't win you games. I think in lower elo, this character actually gets a lot of value, even a disproportionate amount of value. Like, if you're underneath the diamond rank especially, the character is fine. It's reasonable. You're gonna get kills with it. She can mark divers, she can kill backlines, she can do a little bit of everything, and she can do it fine. The problem is, as players get better and better and better, the character operates too slow time to kill when people have reasonable aim, too easy to punish because of how she moves around and teleports, and it's very easy to track. The character also has a very weak ultimate that's super hard to set up. And while if you're really great, you can climb all the way to top 500, you could really do that with any character on this list, even the F tier characters. The character is just going to be weaker the better you go. And I can't really recommend you to pick up a character that once you climb and get better and improve, the character becomes worse and worse and worse and worse to borderline unplayable. Once you get to Celestial lobbies, Eternity lobbies, 700 lobbies, the character is borderline unplayable when the second you pop out and you're doing a little bit of damage, someone's killing you in 2 seconds. Very hard to make this character work, very hard to justify playing this character if you want to play her long term. Yeah, you can whip her out for some value in the short term, but why invest time getting better at a character that is only going to become, you know, a liability for you later on? It just doesn't really make that much sense in my mind, and I can't really recommend Scarlet Witch unless, once again, like Blade, you just like her and you just want to make her work. And in that case, I think Scarlet Witch can get more value and work in more situations than Blade, but still not enough for me to highly recommend her. Now we're moving on up to the D tier, and these are characters that are good, not really, but there are some spots where they're okay. It really comes down to opponents playing a very specific composition or the opponents never countering you. First off is Black Panther. This character has been pretty unplayable for a while. He's not particularly good just against any type of composition with really powerful backlines like Invis, or random characters like Elsa and Bucky that can just counter him, or the many tanks that can mark him and shut him down. But then if the enemy really just don't want you to win or want to force a swap, they can play triple support Ultron and you can't do anything. They could play Thing and you can't do anything. They could swap to Bucky Namor and you can't do anything. Like, there's basically only a limited window where you can carry on Black Panther, and that's when the opponents are not playing characters that naturally counter you, because there's a lot of them, or they don't want to swap to make you basically non-effective. And a character that is that rock, paper, scissors, or basically at the whim of your opponents to just allow you to do things is just a hard character for me to justify. He's gonna win you 1 fight or 2 fights, and if you're really good at Black Panther, they're gonna use that against you and swap to things that can shut you down. Now, if you're way better than your opponent, sure, yeah, Black Panther could definitely win you games. Yeah, but you could do that on any character. Basically, if you're winning consistently on Black Panther, I promise you, you would win far more on any other diver. That's just the reality of the character. He has way too much downtime, he's way too easy to stop, and he ultimately is underpowered to play and main. The next in D tier is actually Human Torch, and this one's a little bit of a weird one to place because he can be okay in some spots. Unlike Black Panther, I think he's a bit harder to counter. The problem with the character is that he just feels a little bit underwhelming in a lot of different situations. He feels underwhelming against the many hit scans that people play. He feels underwhelming even when you have a pocket. Yes, he denies certain space. Yes, he could technically burst down certain backlines, but there's a lot of characters he just feels very useless against. It's very hard for you to stay alive against many things in this game, from Namor to Bucky to HELA to ELSA. I mean, there's so many things that can burst you down. There's so many things that can ground you in the tanking category. You can get harassed by Angelus. You can get grounded by Thors. There's a lot. And don't even get me started on tank pool. Can make your life actual living hell. The character is very, very hard to make work, and even the best torches in the world are off the character. They're not even playing the character anymore. They're playing some other character, and it's really just hard for me to justify playing a character that just completely folds to what is the most popular characters in the game right now, the meta of the game right now. So yeah, I think he's pretty weak. Not a great recommendation, but as we've seen in the past, Torch is always just like 1 buff away from becoming really good. So if you want to learn him and play him in specific spots, maybe for the future proof yourself, that could be fine, but I don't think that he's really all that good right now, and he's definitely the weakest flyer out of all the options. The next in the D tier, we have Squirrel Girl. And Squirrel Girl actually does have some minor spots where she's particularly good. I think she's good at breaking bunkers like PENI bunkers. I think she's good against triple or quad tank. And those are going to be the main spots. Like if they're first point bunkered up on defense and they're really hard to break through, you can really get a ton of value here because she does a lot of raw damage. She gets a lot of free damage around the team and into choke points where supports kind of like to linger. And of course, you build ultimate very fast and even faster than support ults, and you can snowball with it if you combo it with team aggression and things like that. So there are spots where she's really good. It's just like only those spots that she's going to be great. She's not good at trading damage from range. She's not good at dueling. She's not good at fighting any of the divers in the game. She's not a great anti-dive. She's pretty good at very specific things, and those things only come up maybe you know, 5% of the time in a very small window of time. So she's kind of a niche character that you can whip out to deal with those spots, but I don't really think that she's a mainable character in a lot of situations, mainly because she's just too goddamn thick. She's too easy to duel. She's too easy to fight. She doesn't trade damage well from range. She can never win a 1v1 with any diver in the game. So yeah, it's hard to recommend her in a similar way that it's hard to recommend Torch and BP. Now, moving up to the C tier, these are characters that can be good in their right spots, and they're going to be better in more situations than the D tier characters, but still not great. It's just a little bit niche in their situations. But if you're either super skilled or those stars align, these characters can actually be good. So first off is DPS Deadpool. This character is mostly an inferior version to Tank Deadpool, because Tank Deadpool has tons of lethality, but way more survivability than DPS Deadpool. DPS Deadpool gets slightly more movement, but not really that much more lethality, and a lot less survivability, so you die a lot more. And really, the biggest problem with this character is, unlike Tankpool, this character is very bad without upgrades. Like, borderline a do-nothing character without upgrades. You could just contribute a tiny bit, especially when we're talking about the role of playmaking. You need to be able to make plays in the early parts of a game, and you just can't. Once your character is fully leveled, now you're a real character that can make plays, but are you going to throw the entire first map and a half of Koth in order to make your character playable? You probably don't want to do that. And yeah, in the specific spots where it's like overtime, you go in, you go crazy on this character, that's cool, but in most situations, this character is going to feel like a bad Daredevil or like a bad Magik or a bad Iron Fist. He's just not really doing all that much, and he just feels like I said, you don't want to play this character if it means you're not playing a tank pool. Like, tank pool, just way better, and you should probably play that instead. Now, next up is Iron Man, and Iron Man can have his spots. I think he's actually a fairly good flyer in the right composition if he's getting enough pocket with like Ultron drone or Invis shield. His ultimate can be reasonable at killing defensive ults. He does have a very high amount of just beam damage. There's a lot of characters that he can harass that can't do much to him. You know, characters like PENI, he can clear out their minds, and, you know, just certain off-angling characters, when he has that pocket and has that beam, he could just easily just burst you out of nowhere. And overall, the character is a bit of a glass cannon. Very high damage output and very high ceiling on impact, but can be vulnerable to many of the hit scans in the game, constantly peeking you and poking you and stuff like that. That's really where his weakness lies. In a world where there are, you know, Helas and Jeans and Star-Lords and Punishers just running around, trying to live on this character is very hard, especially if you don't have pocket. He's borderline unplayable. It's almost like you got to build your entire composition around Iron Man. But unfortunately for Iron Man, there are a lot of ways to shut down your value too. Not just with hit scans, but like Maggle and Magnetos in general. The ultimate cast time's a bit slow. I have a lot of ideas for potential ways that they could increase the skill gap on the character and give him more counterplay, but I'll save that for another video. Mostly right now, he's just kind of a hyperlinear glass cannon that can win a game for you, but is hard to do so, especially by yourself. Now, next up in the C tier, we have Widow, and Widow's a very weird one to place because I think, like, in the right hands, if it's someone that's really good on this hero, especially if they have a Mantis pocket, it could be like an A tier even character. Like, if you get your boy X-Lex on this character with the Mantis pocket, that guy's a demon, and he's killing you over and over again. And with the damage boost, you have good matchups on this character against HAWKEYE, which is a hit scan that needs charge, and Widow and Psy and these long-distance damage dealers. You have an advantage here, and she actually has good anti-dive tools against singular divers because of the kick cooldown. That's why Widow is actually a very good character against Venom, because it just means that you can't run away from that CC. You're just kind of stuck. Very strong against a single diver, that is. So the character has these really crazy good matchups, but it's all really tied to your mechanical skill. And the reality of it is, on console, very hard to justify playing this character. And in 95% of aim skill ranks, it's hard to justify this character. This character basically is a throw character up until people get elite aim, and then when they have elite aim, you can make this character work, and this character can be a reasonable character. So where do I place her? I don't know. I think C tier is fair because most of the time, this character is gonna be a C tier character at best. But especially on the flatter maps, the long distance maps, there are going to be some spots where she feels very, very strong and makes it so that your entire team could get caught off guard, and a really good Widow could capitalize on that and get several picks and kind of snowball fights, because she gets a lot of value in the neutral, similar to Hawkeye, where her value isn't really tied to her ultimate like many other characters. You get a random pick off us on a support here and there, and you could just win a fight before they ever get a chance to trade your team with ultimates, and that's a very, very powerful thing when it happens. But you need great skill and opponents that aren't gonna completely counter swap you and try to shut you down. Now, last in the C tier, we actually have Mr. Fent. I think a character that is a bit underrated sometimes because he's really good at brawling. He can pivot into a dive, and I think most importantly, he's just very survivable, very sticky, very hard to kill. If he cycles his cooldowns properly, he's always active in fights. He's pushing in with his tanks, he's peeling for his team, and he's baiting out defensive ults. So he just has ways to get value all over the place. And a really good Mr. Fantastic knows his limits, so he's not biting off more than he can chew, but sometimes that does limit how much he can carry games. I think Mr. Fent is a character that when you truly master him, you feel like you're never gonna die, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have enough actions per minute to deadlift a lobby or carry a lobby. When your backline needs peel, your front line needs peel, you know, you need to do this and that, apply pressure here, you need to do so many different things that can be difficult, and he's pretty limited in how much damage he can do a second and exactly what types of plays he can go for and just still get out and never die. Now, while I do think he's a bit on the weak side right now in this meta, he's one of those characters that with a little bit of buffs, he could quickly jump up the tiers, like very quickly. A little faster cooldown rotation, a little bit more damage, and all of a sudden he's jumping your backline, killing two, and living. Like, the character is very scary if you make him a little bit too strong. So I think right now he's sitting in a reasonable spot where people that are really good with him can still get value, but there's a lot of situations where there's other characters that just line up with how the game is playing out. They can control off angles better, they can fight longer from range, or they can hit harder than Mr. Fantastic can. Now we're finally moving up to the B tier DPS, and all these DPS are very, very solid choices, especially if you play them in the right composition or you really are very skilled at these characters. They are really a small buff away from being hard meta, but in their current state, they are very balanced, they are very reasonable, they have good and bad matchups, but overall, they are very solid all around. And at the bottom of B tier is Storm. Now, Storm received a pretty massive change to her kit overall, reducing her overall effectiveness with damage boost, but allowing her to give her effects to players as they move in and out of her area, and it makes it a little bit easier to play Storm in non-hard poke compositions. But still, the best time to play Storm is where you are playing hard poke compositions, hard spam compositions. And one of the strongest rank strategies that you could just whip out randomly is actually triple DPS with a Storm. And the reason that this composition is so strong is because the amount of damage that Storm amplifies is immense, and then adding 2 spam DPS with that just creates some massive breakpoint advantages that the opponents will not expect. Like, as an example, let's say you take a Storm and you combine the Storm with a PENI and a Moon Knight, and then one of your supports could be easily like a Luna, and the other one could be a Mantis for additional damage, and then like a solo tank mag. You might think this composition is very strange, very weird. You don't have 2 tanks, you have a Mantis second support. But the thing about it is, Groot walls are dying instantly, and strangers that walk forward expect a certain amount of damage they're taking per second, and they can kind of back up accordingly. You're just blowing over that immensely, and enemies that are not prepared are just gonna fall over to you. It's also one of the best counter swap comps you can do to players playing triple support, triple tank, which is a really common stall composition that they use to stall out payloads and things like that. Most of the time, the solution to that is going back at spawn, swapping to a Storm-based damage composition, killing them, forcing them off, and then winning another fight with your ultimate advantage. And then eventually, when the dust settles, you can swap to whatever comp you want. But it's super, super powerful, super strong, and in ranked play, you're gonna win a lot of games with a composition like this. And really, Storm is playable just in a lot of 2-2-2 compositions as well, as long as you position well and your other DPS is someone that can really utilize your extra damage boost. I think especially Moon Knights and Punishers are going to be really, really great to play with you. I do think that Storm can be very good in that kind of comp. The next in the B tier, we actually have IRONFIST, who's in a reasonable spot right now. IRONFIST has a kind of hybrid brawl dive type of playstyle where he can go backline, but because of his damage doing damage percentage to max HP, he actually brawls tanks really well. He punches tanks really well, and this allows him to play in some flexible compositions. When he's going backline, he's not really doing a lot of raw damage, but similar to Cap, he can bait a lot of cooldowns, bait a lot of attention, and enable other divers to finish off targets. So he still pairs well with characters like Venom, characters like Cap, characters like Daredevil. He plays perfectly reasonable with them, but he also plays really well in a more brawly type of composition. You can play him with the GROOT, you can play him with the THOR, you can focus frontline tanks. He could bully up on characters that are walled off. He can bully up on characters that are displaced. So there's a lot of types of comps that he plays really well in. The one type of comp he doesn't fit perfectly in is if your entire team is playing poke and you're like the sole diver. If you're really good at Iron Fist, you could try to find value here or there, but it can be really easy to get too isolated. And when Iron Fist gets to be looked at by like 3 different people, pulled, pushed, CC'd, you only have one way to dodge those things or deny those things with your block, so it can be really difficult. But overall, I do think that Iron Fist is in a reasonable spot, and he's a character that can try to find value in a lot of different ways, so for those reasons, he's in the B tier. Now, next up in the B tier is a character that is somewhat similar to Iron Fist, but does play out fundamentally different, and that's MAGIK. And MAGIK also is a joint brawl dive playstyle, having the ability to brawl frontline, focus tanks, close in on players that are trapped or vulnerable or weak. He can pinch with a brawl composition. He can run it down when his team is running it down. But there are times where you can go backline, you can assassinate, you can play make, and MAGIK just gives you a ton of ways to carry a team fight. I think she's one of the best solo carry characters, especially in console. She's amazing. And in ranked play, the trick to MAGIK is really knowing all your matchups, because there are some characters that make your job really difficult, characters like Bucky and even characters like Elsa that are really hard to duel. And there's other characters that, as long as you catch them when they're off timed, you could still kill them. Like, you could still kill a Bucky, you could kill a Punisher, you can kill pretty much everything, you can harass anything in the game. And because of your ability to kind of half fight some duels where you can use your demon to deny them pressing you and also gaining shields, you can kind of half commit to a lot of duels, and you're waiting for your opponent to make a mistake into you. You know, they go too far forward, they get too low, they waste a cooldown, you gain enough shields, you gain enough of an advantage in the 1v1, and then out of nowhere you 180 it and you win it. And MAGIK can really snowball where you kill one person and then someone tries to stop you but misses their cooldown, then you kill them too, and it can just kind of go crazy, and you can just go one into the next and into the next, and kind of solo the entire backline if you're really good and you really understand when it's go time. Like, there are times you got to be really passive on this character, really patient, but that doesn't mean that you can't threaten. And the better you are at executing combos, the more you threaten, which the more you get players to make mistakes into you, and it kind of snowballs all together. So overall, I think MAGIK is very strong, very good. Unfortunately, there just are a lot of just random characters that see play that are reasonably good matchup wise into MAGIK, and you have to be better than them to outplay them. Like, I think a MAGIK can outplay like a Bucky, but the Bucky has to be, you know, a lot worse. Like, you just, the same tier of player, the Bucky's always winning, and there's a lot of matchups that are like that. So that's the unfortunate thing about MAGIK, but overall I still think she's really good. Moving up one in the B tier, we have HAWKEYE. And HAWKEYE actually just received a pretty massive nerf that does make it a bit harder for him to kill during ultimate, and can change a couple of breakpoints with him, like 3-shotting tanks and things like that. But for the most part, he's effectively the same character. So why is he in the B tier? Why don't I have him higher? And I understand that a lot of players really dislike HAWKEYE. A lot of players really think this character is broken or frustrating to play. But here's the thing about HAWKEYE. HAWKEYE can do one thing. He can play in one type of composition, and that's a poke composition, and he's extremely good at it. You're fighting this character from range, you are constantly being threatened with death. This means he's super good against anything that is trying to play range and either play passive or play poke. So he's going to be good against things like HELA and Jean and Bucky and Namor and Punisher and Moon Knight. And he's going to be good against triple support and basically any support in the game, because they don't actively press him except for like maybe Jeff going from an off angle. Jeff's actually good because he can't really one-shot him anymore. But really, HAWKEYE is going to thrive in the meta of this game, which is poke, but that's not the only meta that people play. You can play all kinds of different metas, and there's so many characters in the game that are very good against HAWKEYE. Characters like Tankpool that we talked about earlier, characters like Cap, characters like Venom, characters like Spidey, characters like Daredevil. Iron Fist, Magik, anything that is jumping on top of him and putting him in uncomfortable positions, he falls over and dies. And the reason is pretty simple. If you compare his kit to a kit like Phoenix, where they share similarities in their strengths, but Hawkeye is like strength to the extreme. He gets to one-shot things. What does Jean get instead? She gets a flight, she gets a teleport, she gets life gain when she uses her abilities and, you know, ignites the flames. So what does that mean? She's way better of a hedge against dive. She has a lot more tools against dive. Where Hawkeye has one push back and one little tiny jump, that's all he has. He can't substantially reposition, which means that divers don't have a lot to play around when fighting him. And just catching him off guard one time, you can kill him, and two divers will always kill him. So he's just a glass cannon. You know, he's very strong when you allow him to be strong, but he's very weak against the types of comps that we're talking about. Anything that has hyper mobility, he just folds against. And that's also why, like in pro play, where dive is statistically played a lot more, we almost see no Hawkeye play. It's very, very rare, no matter how strong this character has been in ranked, because of these weaknesses. He's a character that he's strong if you play into his strengths, and if you're unwilling to swap or you don't have the hero pool to swap around him, then you're gonna be at a disadvantage trying to lob, you know, Bucky shots across the map against a character that only needs to hit you once to kill you. Still though, being the best at one thing is enough to put you easily in the B tier, because the games that you take over are games that the opponents feel like they can't do anything against you. Like if you're just constantly winning your duels and just getting random picks on the back line, you are just hard carrying a game in a way that almost no other character can, because you're not really doing it with your ultimates. You're just doing it in the neutral straight up and just winning fight after fight after fight. Maybe they have a defensive ult and they're planning to use it and their literally just gets randomly headshotted. Insane. You won the fight just with one play that took you, you know, 3 seconds to accomplish. So yeah, insane ceiling on this character, but definitely has some weaknesses as well. Now, last up in the B tier, the mighty has fallen PSYLOKE. And this is the first time I've ever put PSYLOKE this low. And it's not that PSYLOKE is really bad at all. Like, PSYLOKE is a reasonable character. She does everything that she's done before. She has reasonable poke. She could dive. She can go backline. She has a good ult. Like, it's not, like, amazing or perfect, but it is really good, and it will typically get you kills, especially with team pressure. It's just right now, with Psy, it's hard to justify her over many other characters because they get freer value. Like, a lot of characters are going to build up their ultimates easier. They're going to shut down opponents easier, or they're going to dive better. Like, the direct comparison to her right now is Star-Lord, and I do think that in most cases Star-Lord just is a more justifiable pick. And we see this all the time where Star-Lord gets buffed a little bit and then he's better, Psy gets buffed and then she's better, and right now we're just on a down period for Psy. It's also, you just feel how fragile you are on PSYLOKE, especially in a world where everything has like overhealth or things are marking you and targeting you. Like, for example, Tank Pool can easily force a PSYLOKE out of positions and even win a duel with her. Like, not even difficult at all. But ELSA is a character that is very hard to duel and very difficult to 1v1, and the PSYLOKE versus ELSA matchup feels almost impossible for Psy. Just a character that has a lot of the same strengths, but just gets so much effective health throughout the course of like a 30-second engagement. It just doesn't really feel that fair comparatively, and it's just harder and harder to justify playing Psy. If you're absolutely cracked, like I said, you can make it work, but there are other characters that I think reward you more for being cracked right now, and it's just not the best time to lock Psy, but it's also maybe a good time to learn Psy, because we know that this character is not going to be out of the meta for very long. One little minor buff next patch away from her being right back up there. So character that can carry games right now if you're really good, and a character that has been historically meta for most of Marvel Rivals, so I wouldn't be surprised if this character is meta again soon. Now, moving on up to the A tier picks, these are some of the best characters in the game. They fit in a lot of different compositions, and if you're good at them, you will consistently win games and consistently get value. And at the very bottom of A tier, I'm going to put a character that you might not expect. I'm actually putting Spider-Man. And you might be like, okay, Mills, Spider-Man's a throw pick. Every Spider-Man in my game goes 2 and 20 or whatever. And while Spider-Man is very hard to play, I've actually been trying to learn Spider-Man myself and absolutely failing at it. Spider-Man is a character that does a lot of things really well. For one, once you know the combos and interactions, he can kind of bypass the support slop way the game is played in 2 ways. Number one, he can dip out of fights and interact with players that are inside defensive ults and still get kills. He's never going to be a character that the opponents pop Luna ult and walk on you and kill you. Like, there's a lot of characters that are like that where they get to just press you and kill you with the power of their defensive ult aggressively. Spider-Man just gets to yeet out of there and then find someone, you know, someone in the fight where he could yo-yo them out and kill them. If it's a cloak ult, he can find the cloak and yo-yo them and kill them. Like, these are not easy things to do, but it's possible. You're not just getting walked on and murdered. And the other way that Spider-Man kind of bypasses is that he gets to pull people off the map and get a lot of kills like that, where you're killing someone, then spawn camp, killing them, and just, you know, bypassing the normal pace of play for the game. With a lot of characters, defensive ults go off, and it's just like, okay, there are 8 seconds of no one doing anything. There are 12 seconds of no one doing anything. Spider-Man doesn't have that problem. He never does nothing. He always can do something. Now, I'm not saying those things are easy, but he can do something. And what he can also do is, after you bait out these ultimates, you can kind of kite, get out, live, and then you can re-hit strategically or surgically with your ultimate. So you're really good post-ult. You're really good at hitting after ults are done, and you can hit wherever you want to, wherever you need to. So those things all combined make Spider-Man really, really strong into just the way that the game is played, especially in ranked play. And another thing to consider is that deaths on Spider-Man matter substantially less than deaths on any other character in the game because of how fast you get back to the fight. Like, if you die 10 times at Spider-Man, you're basically dying like 6 times on another character. That's how much you're getting back to the fight and how quickly you're getting back to the fight. And Spider-Man can be impactful just, you know, almost 5 seconds after he gets out of spawn. You do one rollout into a fly-in combo ult and you just kill 3 people out of nowhere. And I make it sound easier than it is because it's not easy at all. But Spider-Man just has the capability of doing all these things. And based on that capability, we have to put him up in the A tier. Now, the actual, the actuality of it is that Spider-Man's hard. He's hard to play. He's hard to master. But he's a character that can reward you if you do. And there's a reason that there's so many Spider-Man players that can consistently get to the high elo. There's so many Spider-Man more players that can get to the reasonable mid to high elo. As strong as, you know, the supports are in this game and the support meta, so to speak, with the constant exchange of support ults, Spider-Man is just uniquely positioned to thrive in that environment in a way that you wouldn't think. Like, a more neutral dominated game where there are constantly eyes looking up in the sky and constant peelers and constant people trying to two-tap Spider-Man is actually worse for Spider-Man than this period of, like, you know, no one playing the game and Spider-Man can set up and still interact in that environment. I know it's weird to think about, but it is true. And the next character on this list, we have Punisher. Punisher actually did receive an ultimate charge buff, but overall the character is effectively the same, and he's just a very, very strong win condition for a team. That's kind of what Punisher is overall. Surprisingly, Punisher's pretty fragile. He can die pretty easily, and he doesn't really have advantage matchups in a lot of DPS duels. Like, HELAs are going to win against him from range, and he's actually really vulnerable to getting dove on. Yes, he has a shotgun, but he has to be very, you know, specific with that. It's hard to hit, and if enemies blitz him from a different angle he's not expecting, he dies before he has time to interact. But what he's really good at actually against is supports and tanks. He fries tanks, does a ton of damage to them with his shotgun and his primary. He can kill through support ults with his Punisher ult if he's enabled by his team. And that's kind of where Punisher's place in the meta is he's a great way to win a game if you need damage and you need a win condition. Like, he can be the sole win condition that you play your entire game through. As an example, let's say you're playing like a triple support and mag strange composition, and the entire way that you win fights is you pop rocket ult, you pop Punisher ult, you bubble the Punisher and you walk with him, and you just walk into invis ults and you kill through the support ults, and that's like what you can reasonably do with this character. He can be an effective, like, constant source of damage in a fight that allows your team to kind of play the game, but then big bursts of a team-oriented play that doesn't really have a great counter to stop it if it's executed properly. And we also do have to mention the elephant in the room, which is the homie Pirate King Momo got rank 1 on shotgun only Punisher. Now, that's a little psycho, like, to do that. You have to be, you know, a little bit insane and really, really mechanically cracked to pull that off, but it does show the power level of the shotgun. Like, a lot of people think about it as an afterthought, but it has such a high capability to just one pump players if you're mechanically good, and you can just completely catch people off guard. Like, you could round a corner and just instantly kill a support, and they just have no time to interact. It's very, very strong, very powerful, and not to be underestimated on the character. So it does give him a little bit more play than just kind of a, you know, an ult bot or just a damage spam bot. And overall, I think the character is actually in a good spot in the meta. Very solid all around, and has some playmaking as well. The next in the A tier, we actually have Moon Knight. And I have this character rated pretty highly right now, mainly just because Moon Knight gets tons and tons and tons of free value against so many compositions. He's so good with the Groot. He's so good into Bunker, which is like triple tank or like any PENI composition. He's so good into triple support. And he's a DPS that kind of breaks the rules of the game in that he builds ultimate faster than pretty much any other character in the game. Like, even just as fast as like Tank Pool, who has like kind of like a broken, not really fair building ultimate. And you can use that to snowball and win a fight. And then the next fight, you build another one, and then you kill through the defensive ult and you want to fight again. Like, this character can snowball a game like no other character. And you basically create games where your opponents just didn't really have a chance. Like, they never really had a real fight at all. And that's really the power of Moon Knight. Now, of course, he is vulnerable to getting jumped on and targeted. He can be targeted by Thors, and he can be targeted by tank pools, and he can be targeted by divers. But especially right now, there's a lot of games that aren't about that. People are just playing poke, taking off angles, and Moon Knight heavily punished that. And there's so many people trying to take advantage and abuse triple support, and he can heavily punish that. I think he's a great DPS to have in your bag. He's also just a DPS that just gets straight up win games outright in a way that other DPS can't. I also think he's really, really great on console. I think he's also disproportionately good in low elo, where no one really comes and contests you. I really highly recommend learning Moon Knight, knowing how to play Moon Knight. He's a great character to have in your bag, and if you can overcome some of your bad matchups and at least make it hard for them to easily deal with you, you really can go far with this character. The next up, we have NAMOR, and I think NAMOR is in a really great spot. No longer needs the team up to function, although the team up with HELA does make him a little bit better, and it is a nice team up to have, being able to just apply extra damage and anti. But really, the character functions perfectly fine. You can off-angle on this character, you can flank, you can peel on this character, you have a lot of options. He's a projectile character that gets to beat a lot of hit scans, or at least challenge a lot of hit scans if you play cover properly. And especially his bubble, I think, is really underrated, because unlike a get out ability, he gets to prolong an engagement, which in some ways is just better. Where, like, running away can be cool, but people can chase you. Getting to pop in a bubble and your squids are still fighting whoever's attacking you, and you can still be healed in the bubble, can create some basically unwinnable situations. And more important than that, situations where enemies just can't afford to dive into you. There's too much risk involved, because they're not going to be able to kill you until your bubble's down. And knowing that when you have bubble, you can play way more aggressive, and when you don't, you play passive, but you still get a lot of value just playing main, playing with your team, denying dive, and then you can go for another flank or go for another aggressive off angle. That's really, really strong on this character. Also, this character bursts really, really well with his primary alternate primary. If you kill the first person in a backline flank right away, you're typically going to kill another and another. He's really hard to answer and respond to. And one of the things that I think is underrated is, when I talk about ultimates, a lot of ultimates require setup or team help or all these things, and there's situationally good. You know, there's sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. With NAMOR ult, it's pretty much always good. It's such a consistent, strong, powerful ultimate. From countering ultimates to comboing to just killing people straight up. I mean, whether you're comboing with a rocket or a Groot, or whether you're stopping the Punisher ult, or whether you're just using it as an extension of your backline flank. There's so many good ways to use it, and it's always really solid. Like, it's always just a really, really great all-around ult that almost always gets value if you use it right, and that's all you could want out of an ultimate. Very consistent, very reliable, and I think NAMOR is probably one of the most consistent, reliable DPS that you can play in the game right now, that fits the meta and has tools to counter some of the other stronger characters in the game too. So yeah, highly recommend. Now, a tier up from this is Bucky in the A tier as well. Some people will be like, whoa, why is Bucky in the A tier, not in the S tier? Well, it turns out that there's a new character on the block, we'll talk about a bit later, that gets to do a lot of what Bucky does, but even better and more on crack. But, you know, that character's gonna be banned a lot, so Bucky is still a viable option, especially against everything but hard poke. Bucky does suffer against characters like Jean and HELA and HAWKEYE, but he's reasonably good against like everything else. Like he's pretty good against tanks for the most part, although he doesn't really play well when he doesn't have a front line and they have a like a mag stranger, mag Emma. He doesn't really play well there because he can get just walled off. His hook can get walled off and he takes too much damage on the front line. But when he has a front line, he has reasonably good matchups against like all tanks. And against most DPS in the game, he has good matchups. He has the tools, right? A lot of health, a lot of effective health, double stun, crowd control, all these things, and he's really, really good against all of that. So there's so many different types of characters that he can just shut down, from Spider-Man to Magik to Psy. He has a good matchup against, and he's good against flyers too because he has the ability to ground them. Like he's good against Angelas, and he's good against Ironmans and Storms and Torches. So he does have a lot of good matchups across the board. It's just that right now, like the most prevalent meta, the most prevalent characters and the strongest characters in the game just happen to have reasonably good matchups against Bucky. I mean, most of them all do. And so while Bucky is good against the field, he might not be good against the best of the best. Now, you could definitely set up like the right bands to make him work. And I think if you're really good at Bucky, you can make him work in almost any situation. And I think all around, he's an extremely solid character. But the one place where Bucky lacks is, you're going to be a little surprised here, is actually in his ultimate. And you might be like, okay, Mills, like, calm down. Bucky has the most broken ultimate ever. But the problem is, as you start to climb more and more and more, get to the highest elos of play, Bucky ult is very hard to be consistent with. Like, oftentimes, if they have a defensive ult, you fly in with Bucky ult, you'll bait out the Luna ult, and then you're dead because you're in their team. Other times, you're trying to set it up and you kill one person, and that's all you can do because they just peel for each other, they heal for each other, everyone denies you, it's super telegraphed. And it's kind of like Bucky ult is the exact opposite of NAMOR ult, where NAMOR ult is always consistent, reliable, gets very, consistent value every time you use it. Bucky ult is like a true wild card, where most of the time you're spinning zeros and ones, but every once in a while you're spinning a 6. And like people like to think about that 6 as like, that's what the Bucky ult does. But you might hit that 6 like maybe 1 in 10 games or whatever. It just doesn't happen very well. And typically it's because opponents make a mistake into you. It's not that you didn't do anything great. It's just opponents messed up into you. And you would much rather have a more consistent ultimate. Something like Wolverine ult, something like Starlet ult, something like Psy ult, something like Elsa ult. And you'll see, like, as we kind of go up the list, most characters with the exception of one have just very solid, insane ults that always demand a defensive ult in response. And even if they do have a defensive ult, there's still ways you can get value in spite of that, which is insane. Like, Bucky, best case scenario is like you bait at a defensive ult and you live most of the time. So yeah, I'm not trying to underplay the character. He's still A tier, he's still super strong, but he isn't like this Thanos level character. That character did get introduced into the game, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, next up is HELA. HELA is also at the top of A tier. And there's a couple of things you should consider on HELA. She did get a pretty sizable nerf where she can no longer 2-tap headshot from range anymore, like far ranges, which is definitely felt, but typically it doesn't matter that much. Characters are rarely just full HP, and you can typically still get kills as long as you're getting consistent headshots. You're still getting pre-fight and mid-fight kills. And HELA's strengths mostly come down to the fact that she has a very strong and consistent neutral game. So she's able to get pickoffs before a fight starts, able to get pickoffs in the middle of fights, able to get pickoffs right after fights. And pickoffs are just insane in a game where, mostly you're like, everything's about ultimates, but HELA kind of can bypass that and just get kills irrelevant of ultimates, when ultimates don't matter, or, characters like DPS are going to off angle. When a support ult pops, HELA could kill them before they get back to their team, and HELA can kill them right after. And there's just a lot of places for HELA to carry if you have really, really insane aim. She just gets to carry so consistently well, and she gets to play these off angles and just constantly threaten lethal on so many characters so fast. And HELA technically has bad matchups against characters, but if you are like hitting your shots like crazy, you can kill your worst matchup in 2 seconds and then kill the rest of the team. Like, that's the potential on this character. Not that that's reasonable to always do, but that's just the potential. Now, similar to Bucky, HELA's ultimate is pretty inconsistent. Like, best case scenario, oh, it's uncontested, I'm killing the entire team. But worst case scenario is it's walled off, it does nothing, you get shot down, you die. Like, these are like the weakest of the ultimates, I think, in A and S tier, these two characters. But HELA's in particular, I think, is actually worse than Bucky. It's actually the worst, and probably even worse than most in B tier too. Not a very consistent and reliable ultimate. and really easy to deny. And I think it's like the one thing that is holding her back. Like if you gave HELA Jean's ultimate, she would be substantially better, but I do think that HELA is still good in the right hands. And last up in the A tier, we have Wolv. He did get a pretty massive ult buff where he gets his ult quite a bit faster, and Wolv is just really good into so many characters. He gets to kidnap tanks, he can kidnap squishies too, he's good at brawling, and he just is a character that can warp entire game plans around him. He's just so good at kidnapping, and he can make the entire game about him, grabbing the strange into your backline, and if you just get any amount of follow-up there, you just get to kill that person over and over again. Now, I will say, as someone who has played Wolv at most ranks, I think he's a bit frustrating to play in the lowest of elos. Like, he's a character that gets better. The more coordinated your team is, the more you're rewarded for good execution of plays. Like, yeah, you could still carry in any elo with Wolv, but it's really annoying when you pull a tank out of position and no one helps you kill them. Like, really, when you grab a strange, it should be like, oh, that's a window for your invis to pull him even more forward. And like, oh, that's a window for your Bucky to grab him. And oh, that's a window for your Thor to even grab him even further, or your Emma to grab him. And then we just all in kill him. But what happens a lot of the time is everyone ignores him. Your invis pushes him back into their team, and then like no one died. And you're like, okay, what the hell? Like, and that actually happens a lot. But really, where I think that Wolv gets a true edge over so many different characters is for two reasons. Number one, he has so much effective HP and a second life. 350 HP plus a second life means that unless the opponents have hard CC, hard crowd control, and high amounts of damage, he's very hard to kill. Like, if they're playing like a duo dive composition, constantly going backline, the Wolv might just be uncontested, completely uncontested. Where you add in like one Bucky and you can just shut him down right away. But you're playing, you know, Spider-Man Psy, and it just feels like this Wolv is just never dying. And he's just uncontested on the front line, constantly grabbing tanks. They're feeling for their lives. And he also forces so many counter swaps. Like, you could be the victim on Mag, a character that is supposed to be good against so many things. You could just be an absolute victim to Wolv over and over again. You're like, all right, fuck it, I'm going Think, because that's just what a good Wolv can do to you. And the second thing is that Wolv gets his ultimate fast, and his ultimate just happens to be one of the best ultimates in the game. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the first one is he gets to just maybe straight up kill many people, just straight up, before they even get a chance to interact. He can grab 3 people, take them out of the fight, just kill them like that. I mean, that's really, really strong, just doing it out of nowhere. And another thing that's really, really strong is that you can use it to counter defensive ults. The entire team's in an invis ult. You go in there and you ult 3 people out of it. You ult the invis out of the ult. You kill the invis. You cancel the ult. You won the fight. Such a good ultimate, whether you're behind, whether you're ahead. It can also like actually give you the chance to clutch up, like more than almost any other ult. You could be in a 1v3 and win it. You could be in a 1v4 and win it with Wolv, with your ultimate. If they mess up, they align right. Like, the character has such a high ceiling for that. I think he's one of the best characters to jump out of a portal in like a recontest with Strange. Such a good, solid character, and definitely deserving of the A tier slot. Next up, we're moving up to S tier, and these are the best of the best characters in the game. Super good in almost any composition, and of course they have their optimal compositions, but overall these characters are going to just be very solid, very strong, very, you know, good to learn. I highly recommend learning to them right now, and just meta warping, really. Their presence alone changes how the game is played. And the first one is Star-Lord. I think of this archetype, he's the best right now, better than Psy currently, and he just gets to play any position. He can mark DPS, he can win 1v1s, he has a very, very powerful ult that is faster to build now with the buffs, and yeah, I mean, he's just good. He's just flat out good. He doesn't really have any bad matchups. You can kind of skill diff almost everything in the game. I think across the board, he's like slightly favored against most things, and he gets to win fights in the neutral. He can harass supports, he can kill DPS, he can fight pokers on off angles. He's like one of the few characters that gets to not play poke but still dominate and still find value. I also think he synergizes into some really powerful comps. He plays well with like a Venom Jeff comp. He plays well with Magneto bubbling his spins. Like, you can play this character in a lot of different ways to either maximize his ultimate or maximize his ability to go backline and dive, or you can just play him in like any comp and he can find value in any comp. It doesn't really matter what your comp looks like. You can still find a way to poke and prod and pressure and flank on Star-Lord. And just that flexibility alone, that versatility, just allows him to be S tier. I think he's always a good addition to pretty much any type of team. Now, next in the S tier, we still have Jean. She's at 250 HP. Was that enough to knock her out of S tier? No, it wasn't. And Jean is still insane for so many reasons. We kind of mentioned it before, but She's a poker that is very strong at poking. In fact, she doesn't have the high peaks of pokers like HAWKEYE and HELA, but because she gets to constantly heal when she's triggering her flame, she gets to stay in off angles and be aggressive a lot longer. So effectively, while she doesn't have as high as spikes, she just gets to be present in fights more without needing any resources from enemies. In addition to that, the combination of a teleport plus a flight means that divers have a very, very hard time chasing her down. A lot of divers can't deal with her. Like, imagine a Magik trying to dash into her. You dash at her, she teleports, and then she flies to the high ground. You have no way to chase her. You're screwed. By the time you do dash up to the high ground, she might just stun you and kill you. By the way, she does have a very powerful stun. She might just stun you and kill you, but she can also just teleport again because she's going to get it back. Just a very, very strong character that just has so many tools and so much matchups. And I think that when people really get frustrated sometimes about divers losing to pokers, 90% of that conversation is about Jean Grey. Because really, this character is a poker with brawl type mechanics and abilities built into her. Like, the ability for her to stun and the ability for her to gain health and flames from close range. These are all things that give her great ability to fight divers, which should be Poke's weakest matchup, but it's just really not for Jean Grey. Now, it's not perfect. I don't think that Jean Grey gets everything for free. You still have to hit pretty hard shots with people diving onto you. You have to hit consistent shots mostly. So if your aim is terrible, like, you're not going to be able to play this character still, but I do think she's mechanically easier to get a lot of value from than HELA. But really, the icing on the cake for this character is the freaking Phoenix ult, which is one of the best ultimates in the game just because it's almost always good. Like, you could use it to bait out an ult, defensive ult. You could use it to combo to kill through them. You could use it to just kill enemies straight up if they don't have one. You could use it to keep yourself alive and kind of give you a second life. And when you have it, you can also do some crazy stuff like just off angle really aggressively, borderline flanking, fight people, kill one person, they come to trade you out, you pop your ultimate, you kill another person. Like, there's so much high potential with this ultimate. It's almost, it feels like a cheat code a little bit because the power of it is so high, not to mention the way that it just counters a whole bunch of ults, from a HELA ult to a rocket ult. It can get so much value in so many different ways, and it doesn't really matter when you use it. You're always going to get some value with it. So such a solid character with a crazy neutral, with crazy good matchups across the board. I really don't think that she's unfavored in like all but maybe 5 matchups in the game. Maybe very, very few, and she just has such an insane ultimate. So yeah, definitely an S tier character. They already added Thanos into the game, and it's Jean Grey. Now, next up in the S tier, number 2 on the list is actually Daredevil. And this is the guy that when he's in the game, the meta of the game changes. Because he can create the meta all by himself with his strengths. Because he has so much raw damage and survivability that he can burst through backlines unlike any other diver in this game. He doesn't have to do something like, oh, I'm going to bait out Invis push, and I'm going to bait out Invis shield, or I'm going to bait out this, I'm going to bait out cloak bubble. He don't care about that. He goes in, then he dips out for 2 seconds, goes back in. And if you has any help, he can kill the entire backline. He is so good at just executing backlines. And with his information gathering that he gets through walls, he can always take great engagements. And this character just gets to hit backlines, disengage, hit backlines hard, disengage. And that's really what Dive's all about, is hitting backlines, dipping out for a second, re-hitting backlines. And just being able to do that at a very fast cadence is so strong. And Daredevil is so good at living engagements. There's so many characters that you go in as Magik and then you just die. You go in as Spidey and you just die. You're not dying on Daredevil if you play it properly. You go in, you bait out all these cooldowns, you deflect, you dip out, and then you're back in 5 seconds. And if you have any help, you don't even really have to dip out when they're using some of these cooldowns. You can just stay in the fight and just constantly just burst through them. And it's such a strong character and can be played in some really unorthodox compositions because he just enables dives so well. He enables Venoms and he enables caps, and he plays really well with Animal Crossing backlines, stuff like Rocket Jeff backlines. Legitimately very, very strong with the dive composition because you can win so many fights in the neutral, and you could also kite support ults. They pop a support ult, you leave. You come right back with a rocket ult. You come back with another hit. So strong. And Daredevil is just one of those characters that you always have to respect. And the second that you stop respecting him, the second you go up against a Lord Daredevil that just rocks your shit in because he just makes the entire game about him, and there's not really a solid answer against him. He's such a difficult thing to deal with because he's a diver that has great brawl and also great survivability. Like, he just hits hard, survives, has great mobility. He has everything that you could possibly want out of a high burst diver, and he 100% is one of the best characters in the game in the right hands. Now, last but certainly not least, in the top of the S tier, but really you could put her in whatever amount of S's that you want, it's ELSA. And I think it's really, really funny how they had a character like Bucky where people really didn't like, oh, he gets shields for just using his abilities for nothing. That's unfair. And they're like, yeah, we heard you. Instead of nerfing Bucky, let's introduce that times 10. Let's introduce that on crack. And that's part of what ELSA is. She's a character that has consistent damage because she has very, very good poke from close range. She has combos that can just kill people outright. And from long range, she just does consistent damage. She has insane mobility, especially as she gets to farm up her bottom bar. She gets to dash every 2 seconds, which gives her consistent more damage and also just constant shields. Like, she's such a crazy character because she gets to make plays constantly once she has that bar built, including flanks, crazy off angles, dives even. But she also just gets, like, I don't know, what is it, 500 effective health, 600 effective health in a long engagement. She can just feel like this character that is impossible to shut down and kill. And players that are good at movement and good at aim just turn this character into something that feels like Thanos. Like, so good, so insane. Like, it's so hard to interact with. One of the few characters in the game that you're losing 1v1s to on THOR if you catch her at an inopportune time. A character in the game that can win 1v1s against literally everything in the game. And a character that just has such insane uptime, burst, sustain. Just a crazy character. Like, a completely crazy character. It's like if you gave Bucky and MAGIK, you fused all their strengths together and then gave him like a broken ult, which we got to talk about. The ult is just insane. Giltrog, while it did get nerfed, the ult is still one of the best ults in the DPS slot because of its ability to just win fights either in a way that they can't use defensive ults to save them. Like, if 2 tanks are up front and you grab them and pull them back into your team, they could try to cloak ult to save them, but you're, as a team, going to kill those 2 tanks before the cloak ult comes in. And now they have a cloak ult, but they're already down 2 tanks, so they're just going to lose. Like, you could either just kite it back. You could mirror if you want to, but you don't even have to. And then there's also all these situations where you're grabbing cloaks after their ults, or you're grabbing invises and a whole bunch of people out of their ults. Just an impactful ult when they're using ults, before ults, after ults. It's just, that's the mark of an impactful ult, is at what stage is it good, and it's good in so many different stages. And the character is impactful in all stages of the game too. Like, such a ridiculously powerful character. And for me, this character is my permaban. This is what I permaban, because unless I knew how to play this character really, really well, and I was confident in my ability to diff any Elsa I came across, I'm just banning this character. Because, like, when I think about my tank pool matchups against almost any other DPS, I can just off angle them and just force them out. Not Elsa. If she has the 2-second dash, I can't really off angle her particularly well. She's such a strong force that really warps the game around her. And I cannot tell you how many times I lost on my Eternity Climb with freaking someone hovering Elsa on my team and getting diffed by the enemy Elsa in the first, like, 5 minutes of the game, swapping off of Elsa, and then we lose to, like, a 40-3 Elsa. Like, it's happened too many times, okay? Too many freaking times. But seriously, this character has all the tools to carry basically any game she's in. She is the singular most powerful DPS in the game right now, and she doesn't have any bad matchups pretty much anywhere. So yeah, legit pick or ban for this character. And yeah, that's just all there is. Now, last but certainly not least, we got to talk about the supports. And there are no supports in the F or D tier because I think all the supports are reasonably strong. There's nothing that is that low impact. And I think the worst support in the game is still better than many of the worst DPS in the game. But at the very bottom in C tier all by himself is support pool. And some of you, I have seen it in my Deadpool video, y'all like support pool. You think the character's really fun or really cool. Here's a couple of problems with support pool, when not really even when you compare them to the other pools, because, you know, tank pool is of course really, really busted. But support pool, just as a support in duo support, just lacks. Not a ton of healing, not a ton of utility, and not a great ultimate. The ultimate is just a weaker Mantis ult, so it's easy for enemies to just back up and kite away or even kill through. The constant, you know, damage that you're doing is really, you know, it's okay, but it's not that great compared to something like Mantis or Adam. And Other than that, you just don't have great utility. You don't really have anything that's going to help your team, you know, confirm team fights or deny enemy plays. Like, you don't have something like a soul bond or a res beacon or damage boost or an invis pool. Like, you don't have this great utility. So you have a pretty lackluster ultimate, pretty lackluster heals, pretty lackluster utility, and the main benefit is you're building up your ultimate so quickly. But because of the new way that they balance the ultimates, where you don't get it back once you die, you are always still kind of at the same pace of every other ultimate, and it's not really winning fights. Like, tank pool is winning fights, this one is not. And unfortunately, the healing feels so lacking that it kind of sometimes feels like you have to play triple. But then playing triple is all about filling the support triple slot with as much utility as possible. You know, like a good triple, like Loki, Mantis, Invis, cracked with utility, damage boosts, lots of damage, lots of playmaking, pools and totems and all this stuff. Support pool just doesn't provide that. And while I do think that support pool can just be a good support to pick in the lower elos, just because you can kill stuff, like just straight up kill stuff, and like running it down and playing aggressive and flanking. I mean, you're practically playing him like a DPS, but I mean, killing things and not dying is how you climb out of bronze and silver. That's the real way to climb. It's just by killing things and not dying. And you could do this on Mantis, and you could do this on Gambit, and you could even do this on Cloak, but you could do this on support pool too, and that's reasonable. But as you climb higher and higher and higher, it just doesn't really make sense to play support pool over tank pool because they occupy the same slot, and it doesn't make sense to play support pool in duo, and it doesn't really make sense to play support pool in trio. You're kind of just playing a worse version of another option 99% of the time. Now you might be like, okay, Mills, why then is he in C tier and not like an F tier or something? Well, it's still better to play like triple support pool than it is to play like a Scarlet Witch. Okay, anyway, sorry. Let's move on to B tier. Now, at the bottom of B tier, we have ULTRON. I think ULTRON is very, very good in triple. He's really, really strong. Lots of damage, a reasonable ultimate that you could walk with. He could enable divers. He could enable tanks. There's a lot of things that he can do there, but his main vulnerability or his main weakness is that he just can't be played in duo. You're playing ULTRON in duo, and it's borderline to throw. The character really requires someone to pocket him when he goes in with his ultimate aggressively. He really can't use his ultimate defensively like other supports, and it's almost kind of like a supplement where it's like a cross between an ability and an ultimate. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not amazing, it's not game-changing, and he just doesn't provide enough heals to justify him in duo support compositions. So yeah, he's good in triple. Mainly he's only in B because there are, in my opinion, better triple options, but he's still good. And if you're really good at him, he's really good at marking enemy pokers. He's really good at pocketing certain off anglers. You could take it off angle with the Jean and just like never die. You could give an Ultron drone to an Elsa and she will be even stronger than she already is. So definitely a potentially good character in the right composition. Now, for B tier, next up is Luna. And you might be like, oh, why isn't Luna higher? Unfortunately for Luna, she has kind of fallen down as like the weakest of all of the main supports or the big heal supports. And the main reason for that comes down to purely survivability. Her ultimate is good. Her poke is reasonable. It's just survivability is something that she lacks a lot. She's very, very vulnerable. She's easy to kill. She has no blind. She has no fade. She has no invis. She has no shield. She has one snowball to protect her, and that's it. And also, she doesn't have a great amount of utility. And like, she has heal and damage, yeah, but she doesn't have any other special sauce. Like, think about every other support, from the damage boost of Mantis to the res of Rocket to the push and pull of Invis to the double blind of Cloak and the fade, both very powerful, to the Loki teleport and totems, Gambit, just every piece of utility under the sun. Luna doesn't have any of that. She has damage, she has heals, and she has a snowball. Like, that's kind of all she has. So low survivability, low utility, high healing, and reasonably high damage. Like, she's not unplayable, but you could very easily become a victim of a composition. They play a Daredevil and you're like, I'm off this. Or you're just not able to have as many impactful carry plays. Only your aim is really the way that you carry fights. Like, that's really it, because you just don't have ways to like pull in a tank that's out of position or blind combo with an ultimate and kill through a defensive. Like, you just can't do stuff like that on Luna, but you can do that on some of the other main supports. The last in B tier, we actually have Jeff, and Jeff is actually a really good support depending on how you play him. Jeff is really great at enabling mostly dive and mobility heavy compositions. Very good with Venoms, very good with Caps, very good with Daredevils, very good with tank pool, to be honest, with the synergy too. The character can be very, very strong But the downside, the weak side of Jeff is when you're trying to play him in a traditional 2-2-2, you know, brawl or poke composition. And the reason is because you can't really stand your ground with Jeff ult like you can with so many other defensive ults. Like, if they Luna ult, then you Luna ult, and then they cloak ult, you cloak ult, y'all are kind of at a standstill. And there's a lot of comps that just like to stand around and trade blows and trade damage. Jeff doesn't allow you to do that. So trying to play him in that kind of composition makes the character feel really weak and feel really fragile. But when you play him in a dive and you play him in mobility, you can dip out of these support ultimates, then re-hit with Jeff ult with the team going in. You can play aggressive off angles and enable dive. Like, one of the strongest things about Jeff is that he has cleave, where you can heal and damage at the same time, build up your ultimate really quickly, contribute to any engagement, but then also like get out, and like he's really hard to mark by a lot of different characters because he can just run away. So character is almost like S tier in some comps, legitimately. But there's so many situations where you could play Jeff and he feels like he's the active reason you're losing. He doesn't fit in every composition. So, like, if you're really cracked at him, you can definitely solo with him. I have played with a lot of Jeff players and they're really cracked. But optimally, he only plays at his best in one type of composition, and that's it. Now, moving up to A tier, these are truly dominant characters, very strong and consistent, and just kind of dictate the meta right now. First off is Adam. Adam, once again, only can be played in a triple support composition, but is one of the best in that. With his new ability to fly, he can reposition, res his team, has very good utility in Soul Bond as one of the most individually powerful abilities in the game, stopping Magneto ult, allowing you to live any number of ults, really, and your Resurrect, which can be really good at flipping fights and turning the tables. Not maybe the most powerful support ultimate, but if you use it properly, it can definitely be just as strong as many support ultimates, and the character just also outputs a lot of damage. And this is one of the things about triple, is in a triple support composition, you want to make sure that you're replacing that extra DPS that you would be playing with enough damage. I can't emphasize this enough. Triple support compositions that do not have enough utility and damage are ones that are going to fail just straight up. So, like, as an example, Invis, Cloak, Luna as a triple support, bad. And the reason that it's bad is because there isn't enough offensive damage. You need more damage in a composition. You want more dynamic utility. Like, substitute that Luna out for an Adam, and that composition is 10 times better because you have more damage in a comp that you need damage for. Substitute two of them for like an Adam and a Mantis. We'll talk about Mantis in a second. And now the composition is great. And Adam plays really well in any of those triples. He just plays a very good spot, both adding damage and utility that is much needed. Now, Rocket, on the other hand, which is the next character we got to talk about in A tier, is maybe one of the worst characters you could play in triple support. And the reason is because he doesn't provide any damage. Like, not reasonably. Like, yeah, you could shoot your gun, but he's not providing the same damage as a Mantis or an Adam or a Gambit or even a Loki. So you are losing out of a DPS that can play, make, and the damage that a DPS provides, and then you're adding a support that doesn't do damage, so your comp just might not even function. Like, for one, you're all fighting for heals to build your ultimates, which you want a good amount of your triple support supports to be building their ultimates through damage because there's just not enough health totals to go around. But also, you just don't have enough damage in your comp to kill things that need to be killed. Like, you might not ever be able to break a Groot wall. If you're playing like Rocket, Invis, Cloak, Groot is like gonna destroy you. Like, the Groot wall is unbreakable. You don't have any way to break it very quickly. Very bad. So anyways, I do think that Rocket is one of the best duo supports, though, because he provides almost an overabundance of heals, and he's one of the only secondary supports that I think can be played with almost an untraditional secondary support. Like, you could play Rocket with a Mantis and still have plenty of heals, right? And also, we did talk about Animal Crossing backlines. Jeff Rocket, once again, best backline that you can play to enable a dive, without, of course, including Gambit Loki, which is always banned. But, like, the non-banned version of that is Jeff Rocket. And the reason it's so good is that they could just kind of be independent. Rocket res is really good for when you trade, which happens a lot in a dive. He can heal from range. He's self-sufficient. But Rocket is also just good in ranked. Like, he's good in the chaotic nature of ranked. Like, people int and die all the time. I'm sure you know this. And being able to res them maybe turns a fight that you already were pretty likely to lose into a fight that you might win. His his ultimate, while it can be pushed up on by support ultimates and killed, when you combo it, it's one of the best combo tools because you can kill through, and there's a lot of ways to combo it, and there's a lot of ways to use it to kill through defensive ults, which is really, really good. And while Rocket did get a mobility nerf, he's still very, very hard to kill for a lot of characters. He can run away, he can reposition. But the only problem is, unless you're doing that, unless you're trying to properly use it to combo and to like either enable a dive or use your ultimate to combo and consistently kill through defensive ults, it feels really lacking compared to some. Like if you pop your rocket ult and they get to pop cloak ult, walk forward, kill your rocket ult in 4 seconds, and then have 8 seconds of their ult with none of yours, that feels terrible. And that can easily happen if you're not careful in Rocket. You have to be a lot more disciplined. You have to squeeze your ultimate more, which is just like kind of waiting as long as possible to pop it, to try to kind of flip the tables. Instead of popping it right at the start of the cloak and dagger ult, you might wait until like 4, 5, 6 seconds in and then pop it. But really, I think the character is good, and there's a lot of compositions that can make him work, and he just plays really well in ranked. He's just like one of those characters that you're gonna win more games just due to him. I mean, if he reses 10 times in a game, that's like 10 deaths that got erased that would have lost you the game, but just don't. Now, next in the A tier, this is the creme de la creme of triple support. It's Mantis. Mantis by herself offsets much of the damage that is lost when you go to triple. Because we talked about it, how going to triple loses you playmaking and loses you damage. Mantis being able to damage boost everyone and be pretty aggressive with her ultimate and also just off-angling can add a lot of that playmaking back. And being able to pop your ultimate and kind of run them down when you see an opening, or being able to just flat out get picks by yourself, Mantis is just very, very strong. She does struggle in 2 support compositions. I think you can play her in some double support compositions, unlike Adam and Ultron that I think are just basically locked at triple support. Mantis can play in some 2 supports, mainly due to the fact that she does output like a lot of healing if you're hitting a lot of dinks. And she doesn't have like 0 healing too. Plus she has a reasonable ultimate that can be used defensively as well. But you typically wouldn't want to do that if you have lots of healing that you need to do. Like if you have a Groot or like double frontline brawl, double main tank, it's going to be really hard to keep those characters alive. But solo tank mag, you could do that pretty easily. Now, last in the A tier, we actually have Invisible Woman. I thought about putting her in the S tier, and she's really, really close to it. The character just has so much crazy utility. She really, really thrives, especially up against any type of dive. Anything that's trying to jump on you, anything that's trying to run at you, get on top of you, any Daredevil, any Venom, any Cap, any even, you know, off tanks like Hulk, like Thor, like she's very, very good against all those characters, and she can deny all those characters really, really well. Her ultimate is reasonable, even though I think out of the ultimates of Cloak and Invis, hers actually becomes the easiest to counter. Cloak and Dagger can be, but you can set it up properly and set up your exits properly, like where you're ending the ultimate. With Invisible Woman, a lot of times, you know, the people inside are the ones that are going to be hit by the Groot ult, or hit by the Moon Knight damage boost, or hit by the Jeff ult, or whatever, or the Wolverine coming in and killing you. So yes, there's ways to counteract that, but it can be a bit like easy for enemies to counterplay the Invis ult comparatively to other ults. But really, one of the most powerful aspects of Invis is just the push and pull. Being able to push people off the map, or just push to create space, but also pull in to confirm kills. Someone goes a little bit out of position, you turn a little mistake into a massive mistake and they die. And you can get a ton of kills on Invis and just make it so that it's really hard. You're like almost like orchestrating the battlefield, where any minor mistake turns into a major mistake, and any minor mistake from your teammates, you know, even major mistakes, you could bail them out of it. Shield them, push the person on top of them away. Like you're bailing out your team constantly while fucking over their team constantly. Like that's really, really strong. But one thing I will say about Invis is, while she can still be reasonable, she doesn't get as much value against hard poke metas. When characters aren't really pressing her, when characters aren't really diving her, there's a lot of her utility that isn't being utilized to its full potential. So I think she plays best when characters are actively running at her and running into her and running into her team. But she's still good all around. She's still good in general. But poke would probably be the composition that she plays the worst into, but she can still enable a poke. And I think the worst composition that she plays with is probably dive, because she just doesn't have long distance healing. Now, finally, we've moved on to the S tier, the creme de la creme, the best of the best supports in the game. And the first one I want to talk about is Loki. I think that Loki is just so solid. Like, of course, we will talk about Loki Gambit in a second. as the most broken backline duo ever, just such a powerful backline duo, you're never going to get to play it. It's always going to be banned. But Loki just by himself is good because he gets to do a little bit of everything. He's hard to kill. He can add healing to your team. He can add damage to the enemy team. He has great utility. You know, his totems are one of the best pieces of utility in the game. I think it's probably the singular most powerful piece of utility in the entire game. And then in addition to that, you just get to have the best ultimate, which is typically your other defensive ult, your other support ult. You just get to have another one of those. So Loki gets to just do a little bit of everything. He gets to have the ultimate of a Luna, but then gets to have amazing utility to go along with that. Like we just talked about how Luna doesn't have great utility. He gets to have better utility, a better kit than Luna, but her ultimate if she's on her team or even on the opponent's team. And I also want to mention that Loki has enough healing to just easily play in 2 support healing comps. Unlike Adam, unlike Ultron, unlike Mantis, Loki can play very, very solidly in both a triple support composition and a dual support. Perfectly fine in either of them. Of course, you need your secondary support to be a main support most of the time, but you can make it work. And Loki can get his ultimate through doing damage or healing, so you're never going to be fighting for that ult charge. I think that this character is just one of those very high skill ceiling, very high reward characters that I would highly recommend learning. I think he's so dominant, so strong, and I really, really do think that Loki is one of the best characters in the entire game, not just the support lineup, and I highly recommend playing him going forward. Then the next character is in the S tier. I don't necessarily think that they are better than Loki, but they are the only true, like, full-fledged main support in the S tier roster, and that's Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger, to me, gets a little bit of an edge against Invis, because after the buff to be able to double blind or double heal wall, just that extra bit of versatility, plus your ultimate lasting the longest out of all the other support ultimates, means that the character has the highest carry potential in most ranked games they're in. Being able to blind and combo that with an offensive ability to kill through defensive ultimates, or being able to set up situations where, you know, a Magneto walks too forward and you're like, okay, I'm gonna blind him. Oh, he's about to die. Let's blind him again, and just generate kills. Like straight up being able to double down. Like, yes, it goes on a really long cooldown, but being able to double down just allows you to confirm these kills and make these plays. Also, your ultimate, like, because it pushes forward, you can take space and tempo. When you know, hey, they don't have a defensive ult, I'm gonna go forward. You know that they don't have maybe a Magneto ult, or maybe they do, and you could push forward, but then put yourself in a room that's hard for the Magneto to hit. And then all of a sudden, your team can walk on them and kill them. Like, you could become a win condition in a way that it's very hard to walk on enemies with an Invis ult, because you can't push it forward, right? But Cloak and Dagger can keep your team alive where they stand, deny, you know, whatever ult it is, but then also walk onto their backline. Very, very strong. And then I also got to mention the fade, which I think is one of the most powerful abilities in the game, because you can fade things that would kill anyone else. Like, you can fade dying in the GROOT ult. You can fade freaking dying to Magneto Phoenix combo. You could fade to so many different things. And overall, I think that after the bans settle, this is like one of the best characters in the game. But we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. The S tier character, the best character in the game, in my opinion, is Gambit. And I'm keeping my ear to the ground. I'm listening to the words on the street, and some people are saying that this character is no longer broken. What are we talking about? This character is still the best character in the game, and it's not particularly close. Mainly because he just gives you everything. Lots of heals, lots of damage, the best utility in the game. Anti is insane. Cleanse is insane. Burst heal, I mean, that's fine. And being able to push enemies away, that's fine. But just Anti plus Cleanse are just 2 pieces of just some of the most ridiculous utility that you can have. And then he has the best ultimate in the game. The ability for his team to walk in and kill, but also the ability for his team to build ult charge while they do that, and it being unkiteable. We just talked about how Cloak and Dagger can push your team in. Gambit lets your entire team push forward, and they can do it in a much more flexible way. And they instantly get cleansed of any of the negative effects, and they instantly get healed up. And it's just such a strong ultimate that can be built so quickly if you build for it. Gambit is just insane. He's everything that you could possibly want. Now, he isn't as strong as he was before because he was way overtuned, and he's still ridiculously strong. Like, he is not as survivable as he was before. He's still ridiculously survivable. You have to be a bit careful, though. I think some Gambits pop their ultimates. They fly in, they use all their mobility, and they just think that they're not going to die. But if you die, the Gambit ult ends. You have to be very careful and recognize your threats and things like that. So I think before, maybe you made a lot of mistakes and you got away with them, right? But now, if you just try to minimize those mistakes, the character is an absolute powerhouse. And Gambit plus Loki backlines are some of the most powerful backlines, I think legitimately the most powerful backline in the entire game. From the combination of very powerful ultimates to constant tempo to winning team fights to damage to utility, it's just insane. So Gambit is still the top dog, and anyone that's telling you otherwise is wrong. But I do think that overall, the balance between the roles has gotten a lot closer. The power level between the roles has gotten a lot closer at the highest end because there are powerful options in every single role, from Tank Pool and Groot to Daredevil, Jean, and Elsa to CLOAK, Gambit, and Loki. The top of the top, the best of the best characters in the game are all insane. Like, they're all insane. But maybe you agree or disagree with me with some of my placements on this tier list. Definitely let me know what you feel about it in the comments down below. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support the channel. I would really appreciate it. This video is really long, so I hope you enjoy some of these longer talks. And thank you so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.